I've come from nothing, Anthony. I've come from Lebanon where things were really tough. I've seen the worst of it. I've been in the war, during the war. I've seen my family suffer. I've seen my family lose everything. And I've seen how much my mum and had to do for me to come to Australia. Every day when I wake up, I think about this. And I'm not here just to waste time. And I'm here on a mission to be the best version of myself. And I push myself every day to do that.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Australia has sayings coined over generations, created to raise the spirits. The lucky country, where you're given a fair go, the land of opportunity. Australia has many complex social and political issues, but these sayings have filtered into everyday consciousness. And many people come to our shores for the very reason that it is a land of opportunity. Ibby Moubadder is the co-owner of Cuckoo Calley café, Nour, Henrietta charcoal chicken, and Lilymu. Ibby, how are you going?
Good, mate. How are you?
Good. You've got so many venues at the moment, but you grew up in Lebanon and you originally came to Australia not with an intention to open restaurants. Can you tell us about that period of time?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the opportunity for bringing me to your podcast, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I came to Australia from Lebanon when I turned 18 with a dream to be a doctor. I've always wanted to be a doctor. You know, when you come from a Lebanese family, they always want you to be a doctor because that's what that's what they want you to be. And that's what I came here to do. And obviously the reason I came was the 2005 war, which affected where I live and affected the city of Beirut. And that's when I finished school. I wanted to go to uni, and I thought, and someone just mentioned to me that I can go to Australia through this office in Beirut, and I just gave it a go. And next thing you know, I got my visa and I came to study. I did nursing. And then from then on, I finished nursing. I started working as a registered nurse. And then it took a few years for me to get my citizenship, about 4 or 5 years. And then during that time, I started building love towards hospitality and towards coffee, especially coffee actually back then. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll open a small hole-in-the-wall cafe. And that way, when I go back to uni and do medicine, I can... at least I have some sort of an income, a passive income that would support me through my uni degree. And that's where it all began.
Well, it's a pretty incredible beginnings considering the amazing restaurants and cafes that you have at the moment. And take us back to your childhood though, and what it was like before the impact of that war, and what life was like before it made you want to leave.
Life in Beirut was simple. You spend a lot of family time. You spend a lot of social time with friends. I had a good life, very different to the life that I live here in Australia now. Very different. Not that one is better than the other, but just very different. I really enjoyed school, so I was good at it. I really enjoyed the company of my friends, and I cherished the company of my family as well. So that was something that I miss coming to Australia, because I had to leave everything behind. Life was good, but it didn't provide the opportunities that you need to grow as an adult. And I see now, because a lot of my friends stayed, obviously, back at school, and I'm still in touch with all of them, and talking to them, I know how much they're still suffering, even though they're very smart people, they're very focused. But unfortunately, the economical and the political situation in Beirut doesn't allow them to grow and be the best versions of themselves. And I'm grateful that I got given the opportunity to come to Australia and at least do something with my life.
Food is really at the core of what you do now, and I know how passionate you are about the food of your origins. What was food like back in those days with family? Can you tell us about some of the feasts and experiences you had?
Um, I my family. My dad passed away when I was a young kid. I've since my dad passed away, I was 8 years old. We moved to my grandma, who's my mother's mom side of the family, and my mother and my grandma was a very strong, um, strong woman, very well respected. Everyone. Um, she had a big household. My whole family lived in the same building. So my aunt was on one floor, my mum was one floor, my uncle was on one floor, and it was an 8-story building, and the rest and lots of neighbors lived in that building as well. So my grandma had one big floor, and like I remember as a kid growing up that everyone just used to spend all their time at my grandma's building. So I would wake up in the morning and I would walk into the living room, and there would be like my aunts and my uncle and like the neighbors, and the next day will be different neighbors. And it was just, I've always been surrounded by a lot of people growing up. Some that I didn't even know who they were, but there was always people, but a lot of them. And then what was the common thing is that my grandma always, and my mom actually, together, they always just made feasts. And growing up, I remember just abundance of food the whole time. We opened the fridge. We had two big fridges because one wasn't enough in the kitchen. And I remember you open the fridge and you can't fit a bottle of water because it was always full of food.
So those 2 fridges being full and so many people eating, was there a lot of food left over?
There was always a lot of food left over. And I remember my grandma used to know a lot of poor, less fortunate people that they used to always come, and it was just a thing that like we used to give them a lot of food to take home and feed the families. And I think it's kind of ruined me for now, because now when I go to Woolies and I shop for myself, I always, even when I go to a restaurant and order, I always over order, and I've always noticed that about myself, and I always question why I do that. And I swear it's that when I grew up, it's my grandma who's always like, abundance is just the way it should be.
Well, abundance has become a feature of the establishments that you have, and they're all very, very different. But as you mentioned, you were studying to become a doctor at the time. What were the challenges involved in starting that hole in the wall that you talked about earlier?
The challenges, Anthony, were that I had no idea what I was doing, basically, honestly. I never worked in hospitality. I never thought I would own a restaurant because I was very determined to do medicine. I never thought about it when I was a kid. In Lebanon, as like growing up, like your family, like I said, they always push you to do engineering or law or medicine, and I was good at school, so for me doing business, any sort of business or was just never something I thought of. So when I came to Australia and I decided to do a hole in the wall kind of like cafe, I thought, well, it can't be that hard, I need to figure it out. I remember the first things I did, actually, you'd laugh if I tell you this, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew the cafes that I really liked. So I used to, I printed I made a set of questions, and I used to go to all these cafes and I print the set of questions, and I take each one to a different cafe, and I used to answer all these questions, almost like create my own research about all these cafes. So what coffee do they use? How many coffee? What the most I used to ask the waiters, what's your most popular item? What's your least popular item? How many staff? I used to record stuff like that, and I used to take all that information back home, and I used to like draw the common things that I thought were a success that were common success out of all these places, and I started creating my own, like what I want to achieve from my cafe. And that was the first thing. From an experience point of view, I honestly have not worked in a hospitality venue of any sort, not even a takeaway or a fast food place or anything. So obviously that was a big challenge. I started speaking to a lot of people, asking for advice, A lot of people said if you don't have any experience, we advise strongly to maybe not do it. Like maybe it was honestly, mate. But at the time, I was just, you know, I was really excited about it, and I thought, wow, I think I had the feeling in my gut that I can do it, and it couldn't be that hard, and I figured things out as you go, you know, like you run through obstacles, and and then you just know you need to find the answer, and it's just one thing at a time. If you just don't worry about the whole process, just worry about the next thing you need to worry about, fix it, and then move on to the next thing.
You ended up opening that cafe. When was the time that you felt comfortable in your shoes and you felt you understood the game and the business was doing well?
I think the first year of opening that hole in the wall, it was a cafe, it was Cuckoo Calley actually. I still got it till today. Cuckoo Calley in Newtown. It was in the concourse of the train station, and the first year of that cafe, I tell you, man, I did. It wasn't great. What I think was lucky for us and what kept us alive for the first year was because the cafe was located at the concourse of the train station. So we had a lot of people every morning come and get their coffee. So we had that income in the mornings that was consistent to pay the rent and the staff, and I did not take a cent for the first 2 years of that place, and I barely survived, and I questioned myself every day if that was the right decision and if I should get out. And but in saying that, every day things get a little bit easier. You learn something new, or you put a new system that makes things better, or you learn more about the coffee, you learn more about the suppliers, you learn more about the staff, how to manage them, and etc. So I think after the first year to a year and a half, I started, maybe a year and a half I would say, I started understanding, I started feeling more confident in my abilities and in running my cafe. And that's when things started turning for me, to be honest.
That led to opening a restaurant which has got a lot of awards and considered one of the best contemporary offerings of Middle Eastern cuisine. What led to that huge jump from cafe to Nour?
Well, like I said, in the first year we struggled at Cuckoo Calley in Newtown, and then after that after the first year we decided things start turning, and I start understanding the industry, understanding the power of PR and publicity and marketing, and then we created events that really turned Cuckoo Calley around, like, massively. We started getting lines on the weekend of longer than an hour wait for tables every weekend. The cafe went from doing, I don't know, an average of 15 to 20k a week to doing 40k a week consistently. And then when we started seeing those, I started obviously getting more confident, and after 6 months to a year of that, I thought, far out, I want to open another one. and then I started looking for sites to open a new Cuckoo Calley. I really believed in what we do and what the brand and what we're doing, and I started looking for a site in the east to open one, and I went to a site in Potts Point, which the landlord decided he doesn't want a hospitality, like a restaurant there or a cafe. And then as I was driving back to Surrey Hills, I came across the current Nour site, and then I reached out to the agent, walked into the door, and from the minute I walked into the door, I thought, this is not a cafe. But I've always had the vision, as someone who's come from Lebanon, loves food, I just felt the niche or the of a restaurant that makes me proud as a Lebanese person. If I want to take a friend out and I want to showcase Middle Eastern food in a different way, does not necessarily, because Lebanese food or Middle Eastern food is not all about skewers, and it's not all about hummus and tabbouleh. That's only the surface of Middle Eastern food, but there is a lot more to it than just skewers. And skewers we only eat in Beirut like once a month if there's a barbecue. Like that's So what you see in the most common Lebanese or Middle Eastern restaurants is literally the one-off barbecue that you do in Lebanon. So it's not a real resemblance of what Middle Eastern food is. And then I always thought that it should be pushed more. There should be a restaurant that provides all the things that make a good restaurant and make a good experience, not just the food, but also the ambience, the music, the wine list, the cocktail list, the staff, from the minute and I felt like that existed for Italian, for Japanese, for Thai, for Greek, but it just didn't exist at the time for Middle Eastern food. And I've always thought it, and I've always wondered why. And then when I saw the site that the Nour that I went to see for another Cuckoo, I was like, this is Nour. Like, I just felt it in my gut. I was like, this is an incredible site for Nour, especially because at the back of the Nour site there was a beautiful glass windows, and at the time, because of the previous tenant Tokonoma, they've covered the whole glass bit, so it looked so dark when we walked in. But then I thought, oh, that's glass. So I felt like there was a sticker, like a black sticker, which I peeled off. And when I peeled off that sticker from the back glass, you could just see this beautiful greenery, and it reminded me of back home. And I was like, you know what, like maybe this is Nour. And then I went back to my business partner at the time, and who is also not in hospitality, by the way. And I was like, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, and I believe that we can do this. And yeah, man. And he agreed, and we thought, let's do it. Let's open Nour.
Well, it made a huge impact on the culinary landscape, and it's a very popular venue, and you've had some amazing chefs in there. Tell us about that, the food, and that sort of deeper look into the cuisine that goes below the surface, like you were talking earlier.
Well, I was obviously when I knew to my heart that the only thing that's going to make Nour special. Obviously, everything is going to make Nour, like a lot of things would make Nour special, but like it's going to come down to the food, you know. I can't call it a contemporary Middle Eastern restaurant, and if it doesn't have the contemporary food. And I knew what I wanted, but I'm not a chef, so I couldn't. I didn't have the ability, obviously, to do it myself. So I knew I needed to find the right person to do it, and I didn't realize how difficult it is to find chefs that understand Middle Eastern food either. But at the time, I fate, or call it God, or whatever you want to call it, put me in touch with Roy at the time, who's from Israel originally, and he obviously worked at amazing restaurants like Aria and heaps of others, and so he understood the Middle Eastern food because that's what he grew up on. But he also obviously worked at some amazing Australian restaurants, and that's what I felt like I needed. I needed someone that understands the two and blends them together. And Roy, when I first spoke to Roy and I told him about the vision and what I want to do, I just could see his face lit up, and that he was excited because it was something that he was very passionate about, and he wanted to do as well for himself. And then when we spoke, it was like we were talking the same language. We understood each other very clearly, and from then on we went on this mission to create the menu. That was the first menu we opened with, and honestly, from the day we opened, media had given us a lot of love, which we're very grateful for, and then we start seeing the guests coming in and guests coming back, which is always incredible. It's a great sign, and start reading the reviews, and everything was good, and then from then on, the restaurant started getting busy, and obviously after 2-3 years with Roy, he moved off to open another restaurant in Brisbane, and that's when we got Ben Williamson, which I know he's featured on your podcast before. Ben Williamson is an incredible, the most talented chef I know, to be honest. He's amazing, even though he's not Australian, which sometimes I feel like, sorry, he's not Middle Eastern, but he understands that food better than anyone else, man. he understands it really well, and he's worked in the Middle East, obviously, so which gave him more of an understanding of the culture and the cuisine. And he also joined us for a year. It was temporary because he was obviously opening 12 Agnes at the time, and he's like, listen, I've just finished at Gerard's, I'm opening 12 Agnes. I can come in and do some amazing things with you guys for a year or so, and then we thought, you know what, like, let's do it. And then we did that, and then so Ben Williamson had his little touch on the menu, or played a part in making Nour what it is today. And then most recently, we finally got Paul Farage, who is also one of the most talented chefs I've got to work with, and I know, to be honest. And Paul comes from an Egyptian background. He's worked at Monopole, and he's worked at the fish butchery. He helped Josh with the cookbook, so he understands the whole seafood thing. And he's also like, so when we offered him the opportunity, he was at the beginning he didn't understand like what Nour exactly what we wanted, but like you could just tell he started and he was just like absorbing, and now I'm seeing him like what he's done to the menu, and I'm just looking at the menu going into a whole world of excitement. And people used to come and order the same things at Nour because there were staple dishes on the menu, and now everyone is coming in and ordering all Paul's new dishes, and it's just amazing to see how the restaurant has evolved in so many ways in the last 6 years, and it's just keep on reaching these new heights, and I feel like we're at the peak of those heights right now.
The last year has been challenging for the industry, but you've been expanding during that time and creating some amazing new offerings, Henrietta charcoal chicken and also Lilymu. Tell us about those establishments, very different to what you're doing with the other two venues.
So obviously COVID come and nobody's expected it. We obviously, same as everyone else, we had to shut down, and it was, words cannot express how that felt like. Honestly, I've never experienced an anxiety until that day. That's just the feeling of the unknown, and looking at all your restaurants closed, and it looked like, and walking around them, and then just it's always shut, no staff, letting all the staff go. I mean, that's a whole, we can talk hours about that, but let's just put that behind us because it's part of the past, thank God. But then obviously, as soon as the things started opening up again, we already had scored a site in Surrey Hills, the old Pizza Bureau site. And I said to my business partner, I said to him, mate, like, I think we need to open a Lebanese charcoal chicken. I'm very passionate, and so is he, about Lebanese charcoal chicken. We drive out west all the time to get it. And we always also, similar to, I guess, the same mentality I had with Nour, like, why did we not have a Lebanese restaurant, contemporary, that offers the service, the wine, the cocktails, the ambience? I just thought, why does charcoal chicken always have to be put in a bag and you take it home and you have to eat it at home, and not be able to go somewhere and like sit down and order a glass of wine or a beer or a cocktail and listen to music and then eat the chicken in the restaurant, you know? And that's when I presented the idea to my business partner, and he loved it, and he's like, and we knew that, I knew it again to my gut that this is revolutionary for the chicken world, for chicken lovers like myself, and there's so many chicken lovers out there, mate. Like, especially for Lebanese charcoal chicken, I guarantee you find some people out there that eat it like 3-4 times a week, because it's just one of those things that once you eat and you get to enjoy and know how to eat, especially, like, it's something that you crave. It's pretty healthy and it's delicious. And then we did that, and we opened the doors right after COVID. I think it was July. We opened the restaurant. It was still like the restrictions were very bad, and we thought, I don't know what we're doing. It's going to be a flop. It's the worst time to open. Even the media company that we use, they said, I don't know, like, you guys, are you sure you want to do this right now? We're like, you know what? Let's just get it done. If we go back into lockdown, at least at least charcoal chicken people can order takeaway and delivery. I mean, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And like, we thought that from a price point of view, it's affordable with charcoal chicken. It's not too expensive, and we just wanted to do it. And honestly, Anthony, we opened these doors, and I swear to you, we never thought we would be as busy as we were. And the shop has been, I mean, only last week or the week before, we were the second on timeout, and we've only been best charcoal chicken in Sydney, and that was only after maybe 7-8 months of opening. So I'm pretty proud of that. And the amount that we have customers come in like twice, 3 times a week, sometimes more, because it's just that restaurant, very accessible. It's like your neighborhood restaurant. You can come in, have a glass of wine, have some chicken. If you want to have some meza, you can have some meza. Everything is simple, just tasty, made in-house, made with love. And we continuously like evolving it, like from when we started to where it is now. Like the menus changed so much, the chicken brine changed, the spices changed, the chili sauce changed. Every week we continuously like fine-tuning every detail in that restaurant. And it's been the feedback, the response, the revenue, everything has been, we're very grateful for it. And that was Henrietta. And then obviously towards October, we opened Lilymu, also in Parramatta Square. The Walker development, they wanted us to open a Nour. They approached us to do a Nour at West. We went to see the area, and we thought, nah, like, we don't want to just expand Nour too much. Like Nour, it's a unique restaurant. We don't want to lose that. And I thought, what can we do? And then I've always had passion with Asian food. Asian food is second to Middle Eastern food for me as eating. And even at Cuckoo Calley, the menu it's a very much Asian. So I've always had that connection from when I started in cafes, and that's when when we looked at the site, also the demographic for Parramatta, and being in a corporate towers, and I thought doing a Middle Eastern restaurant, Middle Eastern food can be a little bit heavy. You might eat it once a week or once a fortnight, but it's not a food that you want to eat every day. And we wanted to keep the brand. Obviously, we want to match the brand for the demographic, and then we thought, hey, let's do Asian, and that's when again I met Brendan Fong, who's one of the most talented young chefs out there, especially with Asian food. Brendan used to be the head chef for Mr. Wong for 5 years when Mr. Wong was first opened, and he's went and worked in London, in New York, had a Michelin star in London, and he was actually moving to New York to open a Cantonese restaurant, and that's when COVID happened, and then that's when he ended up in Sydney. And that's when somebody put me in touch. Someone knew that I'm opening an Asian restaurant, and I was looking for the right chef. And he's like, listen, I think I know someone that could be perfect for you. And I ended up meeting Brendan, not knowing exactly who he is. I haven't even seen his CV. It was just a word of mouth. And I just had a chat with him over coffee, and I was like, listen, dude, this is who we are. This is what we have, and this is what we have coming up, and this, I think particularly you'll be interested in this venue. This is what we have envisioned for it, blah, blah. And I showed him the floor plan and where everything is. And mate, it was like, again, house on fire. It was like, originally my plan was to do Chinese and Southeast Asian, but like have a menu that just makes sense. But some dishes, dumplings, and you can have like a Thai dish, but it just makes sense from a flow point of view. But he's like, why do we not mash the two cuisines together, as in like each dish will be a bit of like Chinese, Southeast Asian? And I was like, mate, this sounds amazing. I'm like this, you're talking right up my, like, you're talking my language, like let's do it. And then he cooked dinner for us the week after, and he's like, I'm like, can you show me what you're thinking? And then he's like, what about I come next week and I make you, like I make you 4 or 5 dishes, and then we'll go from there. And then we were so excited. 4 or 5 days later, we came and we tasted what he had presented, and it was like, honestly, mind-blowing. And I was like, far out, like this is gonna be way better, like this is even like way more exciting than what I have envisioned. And yeah, we embarked on this journey with Brendan and Bass, and then we are where we are today. Lilymu, again, we thank God, like it's been since we opened the doors. Obviously, we also opened during COVID, and we opened during the second lockdown in Sydney, where things were really tight. It was like 4 square meter rule, like blah blah. And again, it wasn't the right time. And again, Lilymu is in a corporate building, and there was no corporates in those buildings. So there's 25,000 people that's supposed to be there that are not going to be there. And we thought we just need to. We already hired the staff. We thought we had to make a decision. We sat down in the room and we're like, I said, let's just open. We'll push it hard. And then if it's we'll see, like, and we did the numbers, like the budgeting based on what we predict, and we opened the doors and we did almost double what we thought we'd do. And compared to all the other restaurants in Parramatta, I think Lilymu is doing the most covers, and we're getting the most positive reviews, and I'm very proud of it, mate. Very proud of it.
You came here to train to become a doctor, and now you're one of the most influential restaurateurs at the moment, and you've got a lot more in the works. What drives you to take on all of these projects?
I think it's. I think I've come from nothing, Anthony. I've come from Lebanon, where things were really tough. I've seen the worst of it. I've been in the war, during the war. I've seen my family suffer. I've seen my family lose everything. And I've seen how much my mum and had to do for me to come to Australia. It wasn't like using her savings in her bank account. They really had to put every cent into a bank account that all my family had to collect so that I can come and to Australia and study and do something with myself. And every day when I wake up, I think about this, and I'm not here just to waste time, and I'm here on a mission to be the best version of myself, and I push myself every day to do that. And I think that's my motive. I'm not like, whether it was going to be medicine or it's hospitality now, I think if I were in medicine, I would have done the same thing.
You've opened a couple of restaurants in the last year. Do you have anything in the works that we can look forward to that you can tell us about?
I do, actually. I do. I have the most exciting one coming up. Very exciting, actually. So we have in August, we opened this one in August, on August 1st. It's going to be called Alia. Alia in Arabic means above all, heavenly. Call it heavenly. This one sits in the new MLC development, so where the MLC center in the city is. Underneath there's a food court, and above it there used to be a bunch of restaurants, but been there for a very long time. And only last year the MLC they decided to redevelop that whole area. And part of that development, it's opened up a few retail spaces. And the one we got the anchor tenancy overlooking Martin Place, which is a beautiful tenancy, and sits above Martin Place, which is why the name Alia, because it sits above. Alia is going to be a Middle Eastern restaurant, similar to Nour, very contemporary. But the difference between Alia and Nour is Alia is going to be focused on the coastal areas of the Mediterranean, of the Middle East. So I think a lot of seafood. Paul Farage, our executive chef, will be looking after the menu. So expect, as you walk into the venue, a big walk-in cool room with dry-aged fish, and which will be, you see the chef slicing the fish and using it on the dishes. And what Paul is doing as well, he's honestly, Every time I see Paul now, he's in the kitchen either cooking or he's on the kitchen bar stool just reading books, and he's really digging deep into the history of Middle Eastern food. So he's trying to put things on the menu that really teaches people while they're eating, what they're eating, and where these ingredients have come from and how ancient to Middle Eastern cuisine they are, which I find very, it's incredible. So the restaurant opens on August 1st, designed by Matt Darwin, who's also an incredible architect, designer. So that's going to be keeping us busy for the next year or so.
Well, it sounds amazing, and your energy is inspiring, mate. It's incredible what you're doing and the venues that you're creating. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds just to get a glimpse of your story. I know there's so much more to it, and there's so much more to come.
Thank you, Anthony.
Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, mate. Really appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.